Let's talk briefly about or even in some ways, I guess, maybe I don't want to qualify it, the central um, teaching of philosophical Taoism or ancient Taoism, world acceptance or world affirmation. Now, maybe that's a tendentious frame. Okay, maybe that's a bit of a imposition of a Western conceptuality on this, or even maybe I detect that because that's something I've always been looking for in a philosophy, I guess. I mean, I don't know how autobiographical to go on this, but I do think it's really the idea that many ways we think about and try to be in the world um, express hatred of the world, negation of the world, fear of the world, need to evade reality. Okay, uh, that's and that peace lies in acceptance of the world because it's something we cannot control to start with. Um, I mean, I do think that's awfully central at any way you cut it to any translation, at least, of the Tao Te Ching and any plausible construal of the Chinese. I would say. All right. Although framing it as I'm going to frame it definitely does bring a Western structure to it, specifically Nietzschean construction. Okay, so Friedrich Nietzsche. Maybe I should have these names on board. I don't know. You probably heard the name bopping around anyway. I mean, he was the first serious philosopher that I read in some ways. I probably read Marx before him. But I'm talking about like sort of early teenage years when an impressionable young male adolescent in the 70s might have been awfully impressed by Friedrich Nietzsche. Other people have had this experience even in different eras, such as my friend John Kaag, who wrote a book called Hiking with Nietzsche, a wonderful book, actually. Also describing a kind of Nietzschean conversion to intellectual or philosophical reflection. I mean, that's a good thing about Nietzsche, or a good thing about Nietzsche. For me, anyway, like he drew me into all kinds of different elements of the Western tradition and everything. Even after a certain point, I tired of Nietzsche. I'm going and started to suspect that there's all kinds of problems with Nietzsche, which there definitely are. Okay, but Nietzsche, and I do still think of it a lot this way, though I think it needs a lot more complexity than I'm about to give it. Separates ways of life, philosophies, even cultures, religions, into world affirming and world negating. And, he frames the world affirmers that say yes to reality, this world, in all its questionable, difficult aspects, even, especially. That's Nietzschean. In all its questionable aspects. Like all its morally questionable aspects and so on. All right. The facing up to reality is an act of courage. Right? That's the way, at least, I was reading Nietzsche at the time, in the 1970s. Well, I mean, no, he can be quoted directly to this effect. All right. Facing up to reality is an act of courage. Withdrawing in imagination or pretending you are already have transcended reality, or that reality, like sort of sucking the reality out of reality in various ways. And by reality, let's just say, like, at least we mean this material universe. Okay. Right. That's what Nietzsche means anyway, I think. All right. And that's what the Taoists mean, I think. I mean, not that they're specifically putting down some kind of materialist metaphysics. Okay, that's not in Taoism. Nietzsche's playing around with that, maybe not affirming it quite, though. But anyway, if we talk about what kind of reality or world we're affirming, that's what we basically mean. Like the ordinary reality, everyday reality, the shit that happens for, good and bad as we judge it. Can we say yes to it? So Nietzsche, this is basically Nietzsche's critique of Christianity. These people are scared of the world. So they pretend that they're not of this world, right? That they are immortal, eternal souls visiting this world. He accuses Plato of this too, like royally. As well he should, man. Plato frigging hates the world, all right? Thinks we need to get out of it immediately. Well, Plato hits different moods, though. I'll say, like in the Symposium, for example, like there's some kind of world affirmation. But in the Republic and many other works, especially where he's setting up the theory of forms and comparing this world unfavorably to an abstract realm of eternal forms where he wishes he lived and he thinks he's going to go live. All right, he's promising you that in the afterlife, at least if you're a philosopher. Nietzsche says, that's just because you fear and loathe reality, man. You just want out. You can't face up to the pain. You can't face up to the fact that reality doesn't match up to your little image of what you think it should be. And you're tortured like that through your whole life. And then you invent these fantastical metaphysical or religious systems to negate it, he hits Buddhism real hard with however much knowledge he had of Buddhism, which is like life is suffering, but there's a way out. Okay, life sucks, but Buddhism promises an escape from the whole thing or whatever. Okay, like that's I'm not characterizing that as all of Buddhism. I'm giving you Nietzsche's caricature of Buddhism. There's something about a lot of Buddhism that has that, though, and a lot of religions. Okay. So he tests systems of thought like that. He looks at, I have to say, like he looks at, Immanuel Kant as a world negator or whatever, too. And we could discuss that kind of thing, I suppose. So Nietzsche sets it up. Okay, this is going to sound bizarre to someone who's into Nietzsche in a certain manner. I think of Nietzsche, at least in this moment, the eternal recurrence moment. I'm about to read a passage, a famous passage, as a realist, a radical realist, not a perspectivalist, man. And we're going to have to wrangle about that. I realize that there are passages in Nietzsche that read, all right, but maybe that's not a good frame for this undergraduate moment. But anyway, whatever. Nietzsche scholarship. But let's just try dealing with this passage. The Greatest Weight, section 341 of Der Fröhliche Wissenschaft. I don't know how to pronounce that German stuff, but the gay science, the frolicking science. The Greatest Weight, section 341. Famous one. What if someday or night a demon were to steal after you into your loneliest loneliness and say to you, this life as you live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more, and there will be nothing new in it but every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh and everything unutterably small or great in your life will have to return to you, all in the same succession and sequence, even this spider and this moonlight between the trees and even this moment, and I myself presenting you with this. The eternal hourglass of existence is turned upside down again and again, and you with it, speck of dust. Would you not throw yourself down and gnash your teeth and curse the demon who spoke thus? Or have you once experienced a tremendous moment when you would have answered him, "You are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine." If this thought gained possession of you, it would change you as you are, or perhaps crush you. The question in each and everything, do you desire this once more and innumerable times more, would lie upon your action as the greatest weight. Or how well disposed would you have to become to yourself and to life, to reality, to crave nothing more fervently than this ultimate ultimate eternal confirmation and seal. I must say that sounds more like the Zhuangzi than it does like most any classic of Western philosophy, like let's tell a story. Although it doesn't really sound like the Zhuangzi either. It sounds only like Nietzsche. What if a demon appeared to you? How, is that any way to do philosophy? Oh, hell yes. I mean, it's at least fun for a minute, right? And it's liable to grab a teenager, right? Like who's just coming off the Lord of the Rings phase or something pretty good. All right. Can you say yes to this exact reality over and over infinitely many times in eternity? The eternal recurrence of the same. Now, sometimes in some moods, Nietzsche seems to present this as actually a cosmological hypothesis. There are finite particles of matter in infinite time. Okay? So they will assume every configuration infinitely many times. I mean, I don't know, man, actually. Okay. That doesn't matter. This is a thought experiment. And it's designed to show you how far you are from affirming even just your own life, and certainly the world in which you live. So, like I say, it might be sort of easy to go like, yeah, okay, he's offering you this life again and again and again and again, instead of, like, say, the Christian afterlife, instead of an escape. He's embedding you in this world eternally, okay? In your ordinary grind, and then also in your worst moments of loss. Like when someone you love died. You know, moments in my life, I would say, like, have overwhelmed me, destroyed me, right? Moments I barely survived, emotional difficulties and shit. Like, I don't know how I used to just roll this as an autobiographical litany of pain, okay? But no, I'm not going to take that moment where my mother calls me to tell me my brother is dead, right? Over and over and over again, infinitely many times in eternity. I couldn't face it once, okay? Do you understand? This world, like, think about all the ways this world sucks. It doesn't have to be the worst thing ever happened to you. Think about terrible things that have happened to people that didn't deserve it at all the time, are happening right now. Okay, you're saying yes to that. On the other hand, you're saying yes to all the good stuff too, right? But this is not a judgment that the good outweighs the bad. This is a facing up to the whole package, no matter how it's valued, okay? And then the question is, can you have values after that? And basically, Nietzsche's answer is, well, we're going to need new values. But you definitely can't have, you cannot have moral values. So, and now I want to get to Taoism, and we should talk about Taoism and ethics. And and this is not Taoism, okay? This is Nietzsche, right? But it is also raises the question of, can you affirm reality? Say, yeah, I want it all, including the bad stuff, and reach any moral judgments at all. For Nietzsche, to judge of something that it ought not to be, to judge of things that they ought not to be, it shouldn't be like that. And we do that all the time, all day, every day, right? What would we be like if we didn't say, like, it shouldn't be like that. He shouldn't be like that. This, this situation shouldn't be like this, or something. Go like, oh yeah, no, it's all excellent. It's all holy or something. At that point, you're taking all the oughts out. It seems like every ought entails a negation of is. To go ethics in a certain way. So you got to get rid of all the oughts. That's the way it seems to fall out. Now, Nietzsche specifically thinks maybe you can generate a set of values, a new set of values from world affirmation itself, a kind of victorious thing or something. And I think Taoism thinks it can be transforming in certain ways that do have ethical implications or could be read that way. Nietzsche takes you straight to what he calls immoralism. Immoralism, I mean, like from this sort of world affirmation. And from a critique of Western morality, actually, as world negating. All right, but what I want to do is like give a sense that's for me how I started out, like in a way fundamentally ordering philosophies and religions this way, world affirming and world negating, and I wanted to be a world affirmer. And to me, that also took like a sort of like pantheist nature thing, you know what I mean? Like I want to go out in the woods and affirm the world, like a Henry David Thoreau or something. But man, he's asking you to affirm all the city stuff too. It's not nature, it's all everything. Or climate change, man. I affirm it. I want it. It couldn't be better. All right, huh? Is this a good idea? And what would it do to us if we had it? Or what would it do to us if we had a little more of it, though, might be an answer. How bad do we hate reality? And what are we doing to evade it, actually? What don't we know because we can't look? All of us. Later on, like postmodernists who actually love Nietzsche or like another side of Nietzsche go like, well, we are the stories we tell. Okay, this world affirmation style philosophy might be like, no, we're going to have to collapse that bullshit. Okay. It is what it is, right? Not what you wish it was, not how you narrate it as being. If you think you're going to move off this planet into a story, you're like, good luck to you. It's sad. I could understand why you might need to do that, but that's a really pathetic delusion, though. All right. So anyway, all right. Another flavor in the West. I've taught classes. I used to teach a class regularly on Daoism and Stoicism, and they both have modes of world affirmation. Nietzsche's probably not aware or doesn't manifest a direct awareness of Taoism per se that I know of. There were German translations of the Tao Te Ching, I think, right during late in his life. I guess I probably should research that. Maybe even earlier or during his life anyway. But I don't see any sign that he has a hold of that material. Although wide-ranging reading that Nietzsche. But he definitely has the Stoicism on board. And I would say, like, when he's thinking thoughts like this, like the eternal recurrence, he's definitely thinking about Stoicism, which also taught a kind of cyclical cosmology, or at least parts of it did. Stoicism, a Hellenistic philosophy. Go Wikipedia it or whatever. Very interesting movement. I'm not giving an introduction to Stoicism here. But I am going to read a couple of passages from Epictetus's Enchiridion, the handbook. Selections from a much longer set of notes of Epictetus's teachings taken by his students, which again is quite a bit like a lot of ancient Chinese texts, like the Analects of Confucius, e.g. Basically students writing down the teachings of the master. At least that seems to be the form. Okay, so this is famous little bits of Stoicism, which again, I'm not giving an introduction to right here. Do not seek to have events happen as you want them to. Section 8 of the Enchiridion. Do not seek to have events happen as you want them to. But instead, want them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go well. Okay? Try to do whatever happens. Want everything to be what it is, and then in a way, nothing can go wrong, right? You know, like, so you test positive for COVID, let's say, well, want that. And then it's not going to bother you, Well, it's still going to bother you because you're going to be like, maybe having fever dreams and shit like that. But I don't want to start by making fun of this. Epictetus was, one great thing about Stoicism is that two of the greatest Roman Stoics, Epictetus, Greek in origin, but operating in Rome, in the empire anyway, were a slave in origin and an emperor. And those are two kinds of people who face circumstances that are very, very difficult to deal with and that are liable to be well beyond their control, right? It's a funny pair, but in a way it's appropriate. And if you actually look at what happened to Marcus Aurelius as he was emperor, events, he had to deal, with a million things around the court, but also, let's split the empire in half. This general of mine is, raised a new horde to, anyway, a new legion, anyway, etc. I can't control these freaking events. So now, I got to reconcile myself to what is. And there's all kinds of strategies in Stoicism for accepting reality. And the goal is inner peace or inner, the word is apatheia, which is, it's not exactly apathy, but it's not exactly not apathy. You know what I mean? You are going to cultivate a distance or indifference to the way things are. The recommended strategy, specifically by Epictetus, but others too, is to think this stuff is not really fully real. From the start, then he says, work on saying to each harsh appearance, each bad thing that happens, you are an appearance. You're just an appearance, and not at all the thing that has the appearance. You're not at all real. Well, I'm not sure if that's accepting reality or negating it entirely, actually. Maybe it's negating it entirely, actually. But in the quest, but it's also supposed to be a kind of resignation. Don't be averse to illness or death. In the case of everything attractive or useful or that you're fond of, remember to say just what sort of thing it is, beginning with the least little things. If you're fond of a jug, say I'm fond of a jug. One of your prized possessions, I guess. It's like, oh yeah, whatever. Just realize that you're fond of a jug. Or for then when it's broken, you will not be upset. If you kiss your child or your wife, say that you're kissing a human being. For when it dies, you will not be upset. And this is absolutely central, I think, to all these versions of acceptance. The acceptance of death. These are centrally, I think, some way of giving you consolation in the face of death or advising you to stop seeking consolation in the face of death. And that's how actually you'll, merely accept that you're going to die. And for example, not that you're heading off to an afterlife afterwards or whatever. There's a lot of acceptance of death in Taoism. But I want to say there's a less theorized and logical version of acceptance in Taoism than in Stoicism. Less systematic. They're certainly not going to teach you that the world is an illusion. Quite the reverse is my opinion. Right? Maybe certain strands of Buddhism might teach that the world is an illusion. Certain strands of philosophy might teach that the world is an illusion in various ways. Many of them do, I would say. But Taoism does not. Okay. And I would say also that, apatheia, resignation, kind of withdrawal into your own inner states, which supposedly, allegedly, the Stoics say you can control your inner attitudes. There's no sign of that kind of split either in Taoism. There's a joyous affirmation. Right? It might actually take the form of a kind of grim facing up at certain times, or confronting reality, or maybe like a Taoist master or whatever confronting you with reality in a way that feels disturbing or something. But ultimately, the sense is, and maybe this is central to kind of Taoist spirituality or whatever, like that, it's going to overflow into a kind of experience of ecstasy, ecstatic acceptance. I think that's the condition of a Taoist sage. Like, that's the condition of Shuangzi, ecstatic acceptance of the world. And that also means enjoying the world. One thing to wonder about is, if I were accepting everything, what do I do with the fact that I can't accept things? All the shit I was talking about earlier, but a lot of other shit too. Well, that's part of reality. My failure to accept things. So do I accept that? I mean, definitely one thing I'm going to be accepting, and this is central to Daoism in a way that's not explicitly for the Stoics, I think, or for Nietzsche. Self-acceptance is central. And world and self-acceptance are totally intertwined. Partly because the world and the self are not distinct for Taoism, okay? Mm-hmm. So, as we practice world acceptance, we have to practice self-acceptance. And that means to stop judging ourselves in certain ways, too. But it's interesting. I mean, I don't just want to read it as kind of a self-esteem manual or something either. Because it goes deeper than that, maybe. So I'll just read a couple passages maybe that broach the Taoist version from the Tao Te Ching in Stephen Mitchell's translation. I should pull it up here. I do have a pile of literally 20 English translations, and we could try plenty more. And we could talk about these passages in different translations or in the Chinese to whatever extent that's possible on Tuesday if you like. 29, I think I read this in Zoom class. I really do think of this as one of the central passages of the Tao Te Ching, 29. Do you want to improve the world? I don't think it can be done. The world is sacred. It can't be improved. If you tamper with it, you'll ruin it. If you treat it like an object, you'll lose it. The master sees things as they are without trying to control them. She lets them go on their own way and resides at the center of the circle. That is in the Tao, really. As do we all, really. But I particularly admire this Mitchell's translation of this one. I've got some problems with Mitchell on a number of these in a way, although it reads very well in English, and I think that's as long as it's relatively responsible to the original text, that sort of actually is my standard. How's this read in English? But and this does consistently, Mitchell's translation. I like this. It's so simple. It's so direct. He's not actually fucking around with demons and shit. Okay. Do you want to improve the world? I don't think it can be done. Now think about, and the world's sacred. It cannot be improved. Think about how alien that view would be to most Western culture, I guess, or like a go-go technocracy or something. The world can't be improved. Maybe I should run for president on that platform. The world is sacred exactly as it is and cannot be improved. All efforts at reform, therefore, will cease. Or will they? Okay, those efforts of reform are also real. Things start to get funky. They start to get paradoxical. One thing is, the Stoics might have a problem with that. But the Taoists don't, with winding up in a paradox. But I do love, I guess I just love and yearn toward this idea that the world is sacred. I'm so far from being able to really believe it day by day as I watch the impeachment trial, let's say, which is going on right now. The world is sacred. It cannot be improved. Okay. As I think about little shit in my life that, I would like to improve. Okay. But I do think that the moments maybe that make this meaningful for me, anyway, are moments where I find myself affirming even the darkness in some sense. Even my darkness in some sense. Accepting reality, but then the possibility of it being enough, it being sacred, me being just a little part of it, not sent here to judge it, sort it out, and improve it. And one thing that Taoists are very on about is the unintended consequences of efforts to improve the world, which I'd say we're being swamped by all the time. So one problem is that the world sucks and needs improving. Another problem is people's attempts to improve the world. Like that climate change thing. All right, that has a lot to do with all this technological transformation. The world sucks. Let's transform it. Let's make it more comfortable. We need to get it under control like an object. I just read, if you treat it like an object, you'll lose it in 29. All right. If you treat it like something for you to use instead of something that's connected to you intrinsically, of the same nature as you, and that is not under your control, okay? This reality, I guess the thing, you can't control the world. You're under a delusion that you can, and you should be learning that every time you try and your attempts get swamped, okay? I've got a way to bring peace to the world. Let's make atomic weapons. Okay, annihilate all life on Earth. Perhaps. Still could happen, right? Yeah, good effort to improve the world, my friend. If we could just get rid of people like that, this would be a much better world. Let's execute them. Okay. Like these efforts to improve the world fuck shit up routinely. And this has political implications. But does it have, so first of all, maybe it has quietist political implications that might be super problematic. I mean, this doesn't seem to be advice to fight for justice. What are you going to do? You're going to sit back and be a Taoist sage? And then who's going to, make a civil rights movement or something like that, right? What's the advice on that? But I think that, the political implication is stop trying to control other people. It doesn't work. and it backfires terribly, and other people are also sacred, okay, because they're parts of reality, all right? So get rid of this delusion that you can control them. So, to me, I mean, it has anarchist implications, and I'm not the only one who thinks that, I would say overall. Later Taoism does different things along those lines, or incorporates various aspects of Confucianism, including, what we might call Confucian political philosophy, I guess, or political theory. I mean, maybe I'll take another passage or two from the Tao Te Ching. I guess I like to say, like, of these different versions of world affirmation, which I'm always hunting still, Nietzsche, Stoicism, Daoism, there are others. I love the Taoist version of it. It's most open-ended, and it's the most positive in a way. Like, resignation might be necessary in some sense, but I can't regard it as a kind of goal or something like that, of course. I mean, that's sad if that's the best we can do. I mean, there's many passages along these lines. I'll just give you one more, I guess, right now. 44. Fame or integrity. And now this is more like a personal application. Because what does happen, I mean, so accepting things might change them actually. Of course, you can't be accepting them in order to change them. But if you were to accept yourself, you would be changed, yes? If you stop thinking, I'm not enough, I'm inadequate, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not rich enough, etc., you would become a different person, paradoxically. If you accepted the person you are, you would transform yourself into a different person, and perhaps a more content person, and a more in touch with reality person, perhaps, right? And perhaps your efforts to transform yourself also backfire routinely. So I don't want to advise you to stop trying to transform yourself, but but there's something to be said for self-acceptance. But then it has interesting paradoxical quality of transforming what is accepted just as it is. Right? All right. 44. Fame or integrity, which is more important? Money or happiness, which is more valuable? Success or failure, which is more destructive? If you look to others for fulfillment, you will never be fulfilled. If your happiness depends on money, you'll never be happy with yourself. This is like self-help Daoism, I guess. Be content with what you have. And now this could be Epictetus. Be content with what you have. Now this might not be able to quite be Epictetus. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there's nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. There's nothing lacking. And I'm conceiving myself as just part of this entire system, instead of like this individual self, isolated self that wants this and doesn't want that, sorts the good from the evil. But we definitely should think about what kind of ethics can emerge from this, if any. Or do we have to or does this supersede ethics, or suggest that there has to be new ways to conceive values altogether, or something like that? I don't think you can do versions of sort of traditional Western ethics. You cannot be a Taoist utilitarian. Not at all, okay? But you can't be a Taoist Kantian. Not at all, okay? And I don't think you'd be Taoist Nietzschean either, and I don't think you'd be Taoist Stoic, but, I don't know. I don't know, maybe I haven't thought enough about Taoist ethics, or if there can be such a thing. All right, that's plenty, 40 minutes. Accept the world as it is.